Happy Monday, everybody. Well, I tried to make it a happy Monday. It was a hard Monday. I hope y'all got through it. It is August the 3rd, and these are some of the headlines on bizarrebus.com. Pittsburgh and 15 other cities launch guaranteed income backed by Twitter CEO. Lots of idiots and private boats swarmed where the SpaceX Dragon capsule landed. Corporate media is ignoring broadest riots in history, but those hurt by them are not. All yellow onions on recall due to salmonella outbreak. And zombie cicadas have arrived in the U.S. and we're creeped out. All of these and more on bizarrebus.com. Dude, it's Bizarre Bus headlines, 100% unfiltered. Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto announced that his city is now participating in a program receiving funding from Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, in which eligible residents will receive $500 in monthly guaranteed income. The money used to start the program will come from funds Dorsey gave. That is allowing Pittsburgh and 15 other cities to help those who are struggling during the economic crisis brought about by the pandemic. A number of people in the city of Pittsburgh will be chosen to be able to receive the monthly stipend, basically a debit card. Peduto told the news he did not specify how many people would qualify, but he did outline the criteria he would look at. Peduto said that he wants to give the monthly payments to those who are currently struggling and who would be able to improve their lives with it. Well, who couldn't improve their life with it? He is also looking to award the money to people to different backgrounds and demographics so that a study can be conducted to analyze how it works. Oh, so you're going to be a guinea pig. Nothing is free, y'all. Your mother probably told you this. Nothing in life is free. There's always a stipulation. Quote, "This is one tool to close the wealth and income gap, level systemic race and gender inequalities, and create economic security for families," Dorsey tweeted about the program earlier this month. How much is that again? $500 a month? That's a car payment. Sure. Partial rent. Dorsey's gift is benefiting cities including Atlanta, Seattle, Los Angeles, whose mayors formed the network Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. That group was launched by Stockton, California Mayor Michael Tubbs, who launched his own guarantee program in 2018. Mayors are the moral leaders of the country, Tubbs told Forbes. They're on the front lines dealing with, responding to, and working for constituents each and every day. Given COVID-19 and the need for regular ongoing cash assistance, and also the protests on not just police violence, but structural violence in the city, I knew it was time to leverage what we've learned in Stockton and create a network of mayors and advocates with a collective voice for guaranteed cash payments. Okay, well, and that's the end of that story. Well, that's great and all. This particular CEO is worth billions. So $500 a month, I wonder how many people are going to qualify for that money. And if it's a debit card, I mean, are you gonna have to list what you spend it on? Who knows what's involved? But I can tell you that nothing, again, is free. And it seems to me that since the California project was launched, I think it said in LA, I can't remember, but LA is not that much better. In fact, it's gotten worse there systemically, not just since COVID, but for years. In any event, I will link it at bizarrebus.com. Lots of idiots in boats swarmed where the SpaceX Dragon capsule splashed down from the International Space Station. So how are the International Space dudes supposed to get out of the capsule if they're blocked by boat people wanting to get near it? There hasn't been a splashdown of an American crew space capsule since the Apollo capsule from the Apollo-Soyuz joint U.S.-Soviet Union space mission in 1975, at least not until yesterday, when astronauts Bob and Doug returned to Earth from the International Space Station in orbit, splashing down just off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. They were met by recovery teams and, as an unexpected bonus, by a bunch of dipshits in private boats who got in the way of recovery operations and could have placed themselves in danger. Welcome to Florida. The SpaceX recovery vessel, Go Navigator, was dispatched to recover the capsule, scorched from its cooking in the heat of re-entry, but otherwise undamaged. The capsule was floating in the water for about 30 minutes before being recovered, and during that time, a number of private boats made a beeline for the capsule, according to NASA. While it's very easy to understand the temptation of wanting to get as close as possible to the capsule, it's a real problem for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that it interferes with the recovery team's efforts, and there are real dangers to onlookers as capsules often vent toxic gases after splashing down. Dummies. Dude, you're just getting radiated big time. In fact, the recovery team detected nitrous tetroxide used as a propellant for the Dragon's maneuvering rockets in the air around the capsule, and as such had to wait for the fumes to dissipate before removing the astronauts. In the video of the recovery, you can see an arc of pleasure craft around the recovery operations. Y'all ain't too smart. If you're feeling sick today, that's why. One boat in particular has gained a lot of attention because of how close it got to the capsule and the prominent Trump 2020 flag it was flying. The Coast Guard had broadcast a notice to mariners about hazardous operations happening in those specified boundaries on July 29th, though, because the landing zone was past the 12 nautical mile distance from shore, the Coast Guard could not establish an official safety zone, according to a statement from the Coast Guard. As a result of not being able to make an official safety zone that boaters could be forbidden from entering, numerous boaters ignored the Coast Guard crew's request and decided to encroach the area, putting themselves and those involved in the operation in potential danger. So while not strictly illegal, the actions of the boaters coming close to the recovery efforts puts everyone's safety at risk and interfered with recovery operations, including the boaters' lungs, apparently. NASA administrator was understanding of the interest of the onlookers, but made it clearer this would need to be resolved in the future. I will tell you, it's a beautiful sunny day, and a lot of boaters were out there, and they were certainly intrigued. I think all of America was anxious to see the capsule land in the water, but yeah, it's something that we need to do better on next time. Perhaps an official observers area could be set up so the people who want to watch up close, which sure seems cool, could without getting in the way of doing anything stupid that puts everyone at risk. Come on, boat-owning people, don't fuck up space travel for us. This is in the story, dude. Yeah, so y'all, there's a lot going on that you might not be able to see, including fumes and radiation. So help yourselves out, and next time, probably keep your distance from that kind of a situation. I'm going to link it so you can see the video. Corporate media is ignoring broadest riots in history, but Americans hurt by these riots are not. This, along with the pandemic, is clearly the preeminent political issue of summer 2020, as opposed to the presidential campaign, which is almost like an afterthought. We're now approaching the 2-month mark since the riots that erupted across the United States in late May and early June happened. There is a reasonable argument to be made that these riots were unprecedented in U.S. history, or at the very least since the 1960s. Yet if one surveyed the national media today, you'd barely even know anything happened. Nor would you likely be aware that those who bore the brunt of the destruction, largely minorities whose sensibilities don't fit into any neatly delineated ideological category are still acutely suffering from the fallout. I've been saying this. Yes, civil unrest has, of course, occurred before, but the riots of 2020 exhibited features which belie any easy historical parallel. For one thing, consider their enormous geographic scope. While most extreme riots in cities like New York, Chicago, Philly, and particularly Minneapolis did receive considerable attention, however fleeting, incomplete, and unnecessarily inflicted with knee-jerk partisanship, there were also smaller scale riots in surprisingly far-flung places that you would have hardly known about unless you lived in that area, happened to visit, or intentionally sought out what remains of the bare bones local media coverage. Amen. To take just a small sampling, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Olympia, Washington all underwent significant riots, at least per the normal expectations of life in these relatively low-key cities. Did you hear anything about them? Because this dude who wrote this article hadn't, and I don't think I did either. And I'm abnormally attuned to daily media coverage only because I personally visited. Did I learn of the damage? This dude said. These riots exploded with such intensity across so many jurisdictions and within such a contained period of time, roughly speaking, a 1-week stretch beginning May 28th, the day of the chaos in Minneapolis, St. Paul, reached a grisly apex that no other instance of past civil unrest seems quite comparable. Complicating matters is that the riots occurred in tandem with a protest movement now believed to be the largest ever in U.S. history, one which saw demonstrations, vigils, and general rancor extended even into the most unassuming expanses of suburban and rural America. This is a lot bigger than the media is letting on. I've been saying that. On some level, you can understand why the ramifications of all this are still yet to be fully processed. The sheer volume of information is overwhelming, for one thing, and coupled with a worsening pandemic, along with the daily antics of the president, sustaining national attention on any given topic might be impossible. But it's also clear that the severe ramifications of these riots have been widely ignored, if not consciously misplaced, by a media class that was near unanimous in its approval of the accompanying protest movement. That they could have been so quickly moved on, particularly from the wreckage of Minneapolis, St. Paul, where residents commonly told me that their lives are still in agony, it's galling. It doesn't take some kind of profound journalistic acuity to walk around riot-affected areas, talk to citizens, record their stories and impressions, take some photos and record some video, and compose some tweets. And yet, I heard from hundreds of people across the United States and the world who were shocked that they'd never been aware of what happened in Minneapolis, St. Paul, if not for my dinky little Twitter thread, says this dude. When I visited a month after the peak of the riots, much of this major American metropolis still lay in ruins. Not that normal life hadn't mostly resumed, it had, but it's resumed in a way that war-torn areas configure some ad hoc routine that enables resumption of semi-normal activity amidst the rubble and despair. Nobody's amplifying these underrepresented voices. In speaking with locals, many of whom have lost their livelihoods or had to plead for their children to not be burned alive, it often seemed like the extent of the ruination they've experienced was barely ever appreciated in the first place. And wasn't that what all of the riots were about? It was. You know, the brutality by the government, police in general. But these people are being brutalized by people. What the fuck? There are several potential explanations for why. All right, let's hear it. The media, in its characteristic insularity and myopia, has instead chosen to pathologically fixate on a constant stream of culture war that stem loosely from this ongoing movement. such as the propriety of various statues and monuments, whether various food brands and sports teams are racist, cancel culture, and whether various micro-celebrities need to be canceled for some imagined transgression. They are also beset by the various hyper-moralizing staff revolts within their own elite institutions, leading them to adopt an inordinately inward editorial disposition on account of their own neurotic personnel issues. Under these narcissistic conditions, real-world human suffering becomes less of a pressing concern. I had said that as well. These people are reporting what they are told to report because of the owners of the company. They want to jump on the bandwagon when they didn't give jack shit about these people or their plight and just saw dollar signs, dude. Journalists, editors, and pundits believe, either consciously or subconsciously, probably some half-scandalous combination of the two, that highlighting the harmful after-efforts of these historic nationwide riots would somehow redound to the political benefit of Trump, which to them would be the most disastrous outcome of all. This probably isn't even correct. Trump is currently seizing every opportunity to shoot himself in the foot all on his own, which I totally agree with that. But the media class is nonetheless mortified to even contemplate the possibility that anything they might do could conceivably help him. It's utter bullshit, y'all. The same media class members are themselves deeply invested in what they regard as the movement. However diffuse and ill-defined this movement may be, and they are extremely reluctant to produce any coverage which might reflect poorly on said movement and potentially undermine its moral and political legitimacy. It's bullshit. Period. This dude says, I don't claim to have a complete answer for what explains this dynamic, but what I can do is simply share some of my observations and encounters. Then you can decide for yourself whether there's been a conspiracy coverage of it, and if, say, a national conversation is warranted. All right, dude, let's hear it. Numerous establishments were boarded up in Atlantic City, New Jersey in June, just off the boardwalk. An Arab grocery store owner told me about how his storefront window was smashed by a rioter wielding a baseball bat as he was working. The riots came just as much of the city was preparing to partially reopen from COVID for the summer beach season. So he needed that shit in his life. Fort Wayne, Indiana doesn't immediately come to mind as a likely candidate for a riot location, but nonetheless took place. A coffee shop employee told me that their window was smashed by white kids with skateboards. In as many other places, the resulting plywood has served as a canvas for a city-sanctioned communal art project. That's also the way it is here in Columbus, Ohio. And I'd say 80% of the rioters, there were peaceful protests during the day, but at night it became riots, and 80% were like white dudes. What the hell, dude? You didn't give two shits about police brutality before, so why do you care now? Jumping on the bandwagon. It pisses me off. Similarly, in Green Bay, Wisconsin, residents could not recall anything even approaching a riot ever occurring before. Here, a manager of a small tobacco and convenience shop displays photos of the damage taken for insurance purposes. Nearby, the window of a post office was smashed. A music shop owner in Olympia, Washington, told me that while his window was smashed, he also felt moved to put up plywood boards in solidarity with the movement to provide protesters with a canvas for their art projects. Also, so they didn't bust out any more of his windows. So many of the people I've encountered across the country were perfectly happy to talk about their experiences in the last 2 months, although many did not want to go on record for understandable reasons still. There would be plenty of fodder here for heartfelt retrospective specials on CNN or in the New York Times Magazine about the impact of these historic riots, and yet no such coverage has been forthcoming. It's quite a puzzle. You think you're getting justice, but you're just tearing up your own community. A black woman in her 40s who runs a bakery in a predominantly black part of Milwaukee, in which significant but conspicuously undercovered riots took place, she said. She added that she would be livid if she found out that her daughter in her early 20s ever participated in such activities, and she was generally condemning of those responsible for causing the chaos. Many people online have made it clear that they don't believe me, but I swear I have not cherry-picked any of these interviewees, says this dude. One of the dozen and dozens of randomly selected black Americans that I have so far spoken to across the United States, only 2 expressed what one might call a positive view of the riots, and they were both young men. Everyone else I encountered is unabashedly scornful of rioting, and many even express apprehension about the basic logic of a movement referred to as Black Lives Matter, which incongruously appears to them to have caused increased suffering in their predominantly black neighborhoods. Exactly, dude. Here's an interview I conducted on video with a black man, Tony, in Milwaukee, who describes what it was like to escape from a riotous mob on his way home from work. It's crazy, man. I really don't understand it, because they saying Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, but man, you're hurting the black community, he said. He, like many others in various places where riots occurred, also expressed confusion about why the wrongful police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis would have necessitated random destruction in their own city, hundreds of miles away, with its own set of localized concerns that don't necessarily have anything in common with Minneapolis. I've been saying that about here. Here's a black resident articulating the same sentiment in Philadelphia and another in the Bronx, both places which underwent major rioting. Seldom acknowledged is that a large segment of black residents in urban areas over a certain age, and particularly recent immigrants from the Caribbean and Africa, are more or less small c conservatives in their social and political attitudes. In general, they are far more outwardly repulsed by riots that have ravaged their neighborhoods than the activists, media liberals, and leftists who so eagerly imbued these riots with some kind of coherent, obvious, virtuous political meaning, a meaning that was evidently not apparent to many of the people who actually lived in the affected areas. It should be noted that this small c conservative reaction by local minority populations doesn't in any way mean that they would be motivated to support the Republican Party or Donald Trump, as Trump is also widely seen as an agent of chaos in his own right, who exacerbates cultural war animosities rather than alleviating them. But their baseline aversion towards Trump doesn't negate their sentiments diverge extremely sharply from self-appointed left liberal journalists and activists who often claim to speak on their behalf. Thank God. For example, they were almost uniformly supportive of the deployment of the National Guard to quell the chaos, unlike journalists and activists who tend to portray the deployment of the military forces in urban areas as an unambiguous sign of fascist terror. In Chicago, as with many other cities, small businesses now display signs declaring themselves black-owned or minority-owned, partially as an expression of pride, but mostly to dissuade further rioting and destruction of their property. Residents of Chicago, predominantly black and Southwest sides, remarked that the looting appeared to begin at apparel stores like Foot Locker and then branched out from there. Here's how one man described the progression. Opportunistic looting should generally be distinguished from the more ideological motivated rioting, as those who looted were generally locals, mostly but not exclusively blacks who simply took advantage of an unprecedentedly chaotic situation to seize goods. Whereas riots, motivated by consciously insurrectionist ideology consisting of arson attacks and other actions intended to maximize chaos, appear to have largely been instigated by left-wing activist whites. You could possibly group both activists under the banner of rioting, but it's worth drawing a distinction between these two different kinds of conduct which arise in a riot context. Such was the enormity of the scale of the riots, all manner of drastic local measures were enacted to preempt or curtail the chaos many of which received next to no attention from the national media on account of their preoccupation with other things. In Hammond, Indiana, which sits on the state border with Illinois, the Democratic mayor went so far as to order large concrete blocks erected in the middle of a public roadway to block off unwanted incoming rioter traffic. During a recent stop there, I heard locals muse with half-formed rumors about business owners having taken matters into their own hands and heading to the rooftops of their buildings with rifles in tow to fend off potential looters. Often such rumors cannot be verified, and the rumors themselves serve a kind of psychologically gratifying purpose for those who spread them, as they allow bystanders to construct their own self-affirming narratives out of the chaos. But everywhere I've gone over the past 2 months, if there was a hint of unwieldy protest or riot activity, places are awash with rumors. This, along with the pandemic, is clearly the preeminent political issue of the summer of 2020. There is a lot more to this story. I'm talking a lot. I could spend an hour reading it. But you get the idea. And this is what I've been saying. But I will link it at bizarrebus.com.
What's up, Bizarre fam? Let me tell you what I'm excited about right now. Give me just a second. Bizarre Abyss merchandise. Look at this. It's so comfortable. It's so stretchy. It fits most faces, if not all faces. I mean, if it doesn't fit your face, there's something wrong with your face, I think. It doesn't hurt your ears like most Macs do. And our new logo's on it. Anyway, I'll settle down for a moment. I just wanted to share the amazing news. bizarreabyss.com, y'all. Bizarre Abyss merchandise. Make it happen.
Recalls all onions from the entire U.S. because of a link to salmonella Newport outbreak. Thompson International Inc. is recalling all of its onions, regardless of color, from all 50 states. Similar to a recall in Canada, the U.S. recall is because of links to a salmonella Newport outbreak that has sickened a total of 510 people across both countries. Of the infected people, 396 are from 34 U.S. states. Of those for whom information is available, 59 have been admitted to hospitals. The first illness began on July 12th, but health officials expect more to be identified because of the lag time between illness onset and the confirmation required for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to add a patient to its tally. There were 114 confirmed infected people in Canada as of the 31st. The implicated onions in Canada were shipped to provinces of Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, Northwest Territories, Ontario, possibly national, Saskatchewan, Yukon. Canada officials did not immediately name Thompson onions, with the country's first recall related to the outbreak involving Cisco onions. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has since added several Thompson products in the second recall notice. Cisco is one of the largest broadline suppliers in North America. It supplies wholesalers, packers, retailers, restaurants, and food service operations ranging from schools to nursing homes. Dude. Grow your own food, dude. You gotta grow your own food. You need to check out Victory Gardens on Facebook. Those dudes know what's up, man. They will help you start your own garden, man. They're also on TikTok, Instagram. I mean, I follow them. You got to check them out, man. She is freaking awesome. Initially, it was thought that only red onions were implicated in the salmonella Newport outbreak, but because of cross-contamination issues, all onions, including yellow, white, and sweet, are being recalled in both countries. Okay, let me get you this link real quick just because I need to get it right. VictoryGardensRevival.com, y'all. Okay? Check her out. She will help you get your shit together. She's why I grew a garden this year. I'm eating like a king. Well, I'm already fat, but I'm just saying. As of now, no specific source of contamination or contaminated shipment has been identified, and FDA is also investigating other potential sources of contamination and has not yet reached a final conclusion. Many of the onions are packaged for food service use and have been used in multi-ingredient food, so it's difficult for consumers to know whether the onions in such food are part of the recall. So, dude, if there's something that you bought that's got onions in it and you're cooking it, make sure you cook the hell out of it. If it's fresh, don't eat it. You will get sick. There's more to this. I will link it at bizarrebus.com. Check out Victory Gardens Revival. Let me make sure I get that right because I hate not being right. VictoryGardensRevival.com for your garden needs. And I hope none of you get ill, okay? For real, I mean that. My kid got sick when she was in high school with either E. coli or salmonella, and it was awful. It took her months to recover. And finally tonight, zombie cicadas. Just what we need in 2020, y'all. Have been spotted in the United States, and we are officially creeped out. Dude, I don't even know what to say. As if the threat of murder hornets and mosquito-borne illnesses weren't enough, now zombie cicadas have arrived in the U.S., and we've never been more excited to use our canopy chairs with bug guard and hide from this savage insect community. According to CBS News, zombie cicadas have been spotted in West Virginia. Fortunately, these mutant critters appear harmless to humans, they say. Yet the process in which zombie cicadas infect others is quite bizarre. Unlike your average noisy chirping cicadas, these zombie cicadas are infected with a fungus called Massospora that basically eats away at their mind and body. A study recently published compares the transmission of Massospora, known as active host transmission or AHT, to that of rabies. AHT is a form of biological puppetry in which the pathogen manipulates the behavior of its powerless host. The study writes, it explains that when a male cicada becomes infected with the fungus, it will start mimicking the winging, flickering behavior that is typically exclusive to female cicadas. Other male cicadas will be lured in thinking it's a female cicada wanting to mate. Since cicadas are not sexually dimorphic, it's hard to distinguish between a male and a female. Once the interested cicada flocks to the infected cicada to mate, the infected cicada will attempt to transfer the fungus over to its peer. Then the Massospora will begin to eat away at the cicada's abdomen from the inside, filling it up with yellow fungal spores. Dude. Not only will the now zombie-like cicada lose half its body to the ferocious fungus, but it will be brainwashed and tricked into performing male-female mating rituals in order to continue spreading the virus. Think of it as a living death. The cicada will continue to exist, but in a mutated life form. The spores that form in each cicada's abdomen can be dropped into other cicadas to further transmit the disease. That's some smart fungi, y'all. Dude, what if one landed on you and, you had some sore on your head or something and a spore got in there? I'm just saying, y'all. Might be time to start wearing hats and netting and shit. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of research on this bizarre fungal infection yet. Exactly my point. As it's extremely challenging for scientists, since certain cicadas live underground for periods of 13 to 17 years. In fact, it's still unknown how Massospora originated. All I know is I'm running the other way when I hear rackety chirps. These bugs are bugging. Dude. El Nopo. Excuse me. I ain't about it. It ain't happening. I'm staying the hell away from that shit. Also, cats carry a parasite that they say can infect human brains. Might want to Google that up, cat lovers. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate you guys. We are 800 away from 100,000 on TikTok. We're putting together a special thing for that, so stay tuned for that. Everybody have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Stay bizarre.
Yeah. Make sure you take a deep breath. Think positive. Just saying.
Dude. Penguins given free rein to roam around the aquarium since there's no visitors allowed. That's awesome! Dude, look. He's looking around. He's loving it. I got a new section on the headlines page at the bottom called Bad Seeds. Matt Gaetz of Florida, 1st Congressional District, mocked the whole process by wearing a gas mask when reviewing the funding. You're a super freaking winner, dude. An Alaska airman has been punished for peeing in the office coffee maker. Dude, why? Like, why? Did you take it in the bathroom with you? Did you stand in the kitchen and whip it out? Clearly, this airman is dedicated to getting kicked the F out. He's trying really hard, y'all.